often with people are that have taken this idea that we create our own reality by the power of our mind or whatever, or that gift of consciousness, and then they go, but geez, I've been doing affirmations to make $1 million for 50 years. That must be that must be all crap, that theory. But what they're not understanding is our subconscious is at work as well. And in most cases, it's way more powerful than our conscious mind anyways. So if they're not in conjunction, it's whatever one we really have the deepest, most strongest beliefs in that create that, that our reality, or the way we see reality, right? Yeah. At least that's my belief. And and who knows when that'll be taken away and another one will come in. That's what sort of works for me right now.
I mean, in the end, don't we all get to go home? There is.
That'd be my sense. I mean, at those times when I'm home, when I'm feeling that connection with, when I'm just feeling that connection and sense of peace and joy with everything, it's like, it's real clear to me that it's not we all get to go home, we all are home already, and it's just a matter of recognizing it. And in that place, to me, it doesn't even feel like, my mind is empty. So they talk about one of the highest desires is the desire for love. But as long as I desire love, I will not experience love. All that that can do is just move all the other desires and let them fall away. But then in the end, if I chose that to be the end point, I'd still be left with a desire for love. Well, as long as I desire love, I think that I don't already have it. Well, love doesn't work like that, right? Because love it's always available. So in the end, we have to let go of that desire as well to recognize that, oh, it's already here. I don't have to desire it. Right? Yeah. So it's tricky, It becomes subtle at those levels, and there's so many places where we can get caught in struggling, in doing, or thinking that we gotta control things and get there, get home, get the love, get to the oneness.
Get the deal.
Yeah.
Why do you do what you do?
Well, it depends on what part we're talking about. when I'm there's some doing that I do out of all my patterns and my neediness, and there's also a doing that comes from a place of being, of this first letting go of my plans, little me, little Kelly's plans, and being willing to be guided by, again, what I'll term higher mind, but inspiration that comes through. And when my doing comes out of that, everything just seems to flow, It just seems to make sense. The heaven on earth becomes a reality for me. And so when I'm just in that trusting place, I get instructions. And it's scary because I never know what's coming next, right? Like, it's real easy for me to get sort of instructions and think, oh yeah, okay, now do workshops, do the one-on-one, transformational sessions, blah, 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 do these things. And I've been called to do them for a while. So there's part of me that wants to identify with that and go, okay, this is what I do, right? Well, truth is, I don't know. Tomorrow I might be called to go out and be a logger, and do it with love. I don't know, right? But if I get attached to doing workshops or doing sessions with people or or any of that, then it'll start to collapse in on me if I'm trying to hang on to it from a place of control, and my heart's telling me, to do something else. Then I've always found if I followed my heart, that it's always got my best interest in mind, even though I might think that, no, this has been working so well, we got to keep doing this, right? And it's so easy to attach to things that work well. It's actually that can be more of a trap than these things that don't work well. Because when we're asked to give that up, okay, please, lift it, take it, right? But when things are going smooth, it's easy to lock on and try and control them and hold that moment. It's like when we go out and see that incredible sunset, and it's just like, oh, wow, what an experience that was. And then we go up to the same hill and wait day after day, and it's like sunset after sunset comes, and it's like, in this attempt to capture the feeling, and it's like, as long as we're trying to capture it, there's no room to just expand and let whatever wants to come in. And it might not be joy. It might be that I need to go through the next level of grief, right? And as long as I'm trying to hang on to my joy, I'm just blocking whatever it needs to unfold and whatever it needs to happen. And so there's always this constant call to trust the process. And for me, there's often when my old patterns click in, there's like opposing to trusting the process. Any place in me that still feels victim, is going, don't trust the process, or we'll be victimized, right?
And it seems to me that it's going to be in the relationship that probably the first place in your life that it'll pop up, that you'll be called on to change or something. It's just relationships just seem to be such a meaty, a quicker way to the problem.
I certainly find that in my own experience. Like, my wife's certainly my greatest teacher, my guru. I mean, because there's been such a depth of trust and love built up, it means, I feel safe enough to bring stuff out of the basement, my real ugly stuff, right? And that's scary, and it's stuff that I haven't built up the trust with a whole lot of people to really come out with the deep stuff that I have in that relationship. But boy, whenever I bring out the real ugly stuff with the most, at some levels is the most important relationship to me and the easiest one to get attached to, it's like, boy, I don't want to show this stuff. Maybe this time she'll leave, she didn't leave at the last 300, but this time, I mean, this is too ugly. This time she's gone, right? So, but it is that deep sense of trust that allows for all these flare-ups, and it's not always flare-ups in some relationships. It's more like a sort of coldness or a drawback, but for issues to come up that are calling to be cleaned out, that are calling to be lifted, the blocks that are being called to be lifted. A relationship can be such a good vehicle for that.
And yet for a lot of guys, the home is a battlefront.
That's one of the, it's the beauty in the relationship is that we can uncover these deep programs, but at the same time, because it stirs up all the places that we want to defend, all the places that we feel wounded, we feel hurt, that where fear comes up, and it can become a battleground, and oftentimes a real committed, ongoing relationship where they're really in there working the relationship. It can feel like hell, it can, and there's so many times in the temptation of, I want to get out of here, right? I want to blame my partner and say they're creating this hell. If they weren't my life would be wonderful, right? And maybe it would seem like it for a little while, for people that have been in and out of relationships, that they leave, and then for a while it's like, oh yeah, this is really nice, I'm all independent, but there's still all that stuff down in the basement, of course, that if they go into another relationship and are willing to face the depth of it, that same stuff will surface if there's enough love, if the container is big enough and strong enough in the relationship, that sort of thing is going to come up again. And one of the easiest ways to walk through the battlefield is, first of all, to accept it and not try and fight it. And then
fight the fact of the battlefield.
Yeah, fight the
don't
fact.
Say everything's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And realize that this is what part of what relationship dynamic is about at sometimes, is like bringing up stuff for clearing. And, in the middle of the battle, we usually don't say, oh, wow, this is a real blessing. But fortunately, when we get back to center, we can look back, and if we look back with clarity, we'll realize that, oh, this isn't something that's to be pushed away or to be fought against. That there is opportunity for movement here, and see it from a blessing there. And of course, to not make decisions from the middle of the battlefield, like I'm leaving or I'm doing this or that, or get out of my life, or if there's any deep decisions, to wait till we get back to center and then feel.
Those sort of life condition changes. But there's still, in the battlefield, there's always got to be a choice, right? So in the heart of the battlefield, there you are, and you're not going to make life-changing conditional changes, but you have a choice. What's your choice in the battlefield?
Well, one of them is to surrender, right?
What does that look like? What does that mean? Look at your partner and
put down my guns. Be willing to be wrong. Be willing to allow her to be right about where she's at. Now, that doesn't mean I have to agree that I think it's right too, but to not disagree, to not fight it, to surrender. And the interesting thing is that our partners, usually what the fights are about is our partner goes, I want you to be better in this area. I want you to do this, or I want you to do that, to improve, right? Well, we fight it so much, but when we're in our own private little places, what do we think about? Oh, I wish I was better. I would love to improve. I want my life to grow. I want to, raise my consciousness. So if we can realize that we're on the same team, that she's this, or the partner is just calling for exactly what I want as well, right? And if we catch that, then we can start listening and going, oh yeah, well, maybe that is something that maybe she's got this point here that I haven't seen, or some place that I can prove. Maybe she can help me on this journey, because they are speaking that part of ourselves that wants to grow as well, right?
So letting your partner be right, can that be the same as giving in? It may feel like giving in, certainly.
Well, it depends on what you mean by giving in.
Oh, you're right there. We'll do it your way.
Yeah. Now we're talking about sacrifice, because we're saying, oh yeah, well, you will do it your way, but still inside, that's not what I'm feeling. I'm feeling like, I've got the handle on the right way, and now I'm just sacrificing. I'm talking about being true and giving from a loving place. That if I decide to go, okay, if it's a thing of, if she's asking for something to be done her way, if I'm coming from a true place of, yeah, I would like to give you this as a gift, then I'm behind it, and then I'm connected, then I'm truly surrendered. But if I'm going, I just want to make peace here, so I'll do anything to shut you up, you know, if that's the underlying message, then it's got nothing to do with connection or surrender. It's just all pseudo surrender. It's sacrifice. And then we go away feeling like we betrayed ourselves, and our partner feels that, and usually they'll go, well, don't do it then, right? Because you know, what do you mean you'll do it? Yeah, sure, out of sacrifice.
I get the bitch about mixed messages.
Yeah, and so feel how they're our teachers again. They're going, hey, look, buddy, you're not being real. Yeah, you're speaking words that don't align with your whole system. Even if it seems like they're coming towards us with those same words that we'd interpret as attack at some point, if I'm feeling centered, it doesn't feel like attack. It feels like some kind of request or something, like, you know, like she might be asking for support or some kind of nurturing. Maybe she's feeling off center and is trying to somehow pull support. Well, if I'm in this place of connectedness, oh yeah, I can't thank you for the opportunity to let me to support you. But if I'm feeling small and she's asking for support, it's like, geez, I'm, you know, like, I can't support you, you know, get away. And then there's the fight, then there's the trying to create a separation that doesn't exist. And this is the crux of the matter, is all our fights are basically useless because we're trying to pretend that we're separate when we're not, you know. In all battles, all wars and everything is this, it's a joke because we're trying to pretend we're separate. And no wonder we struggle so hard, because we're trying to prove that we're right about being separate, and we're not, so there's no way we can prove it. So this escalates.
That's why violence doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's just got to get stronger and stronger, but it's fighting an unbeatable foe. That we're all connected, and that there is, you know, that connection.
Well, I mean, ultimately, do you really see men's work as being that much different from anybody else's?
Fundamentally, on the basis, underlying, there's the same principles of truth and process are always in play. It sets up a different dynamic, a different starting point, a place of exploring issues that don't always get brought up in mixed groups. Because there's been such a battle or war between the sexes at some deeper subconscious levels, as well as consciously in some cases. There's a tendency, if men speak about some particular issues and there's women around, that they'll view it in a particular way. I'm just talking generalizations, that it'll be viewed in a particular way and seen somehow as a problem or a fault or something that needs to be attacked. And then the war will come on. In the other way, when women will bring up certain issues, when men are around, the insecurities in men will come up and they'll feel like it's an attack. And then there'll be a struggle over the issue rather than a place to voice it and clear it. And that's why it's so important to have women's groups and to have men's groups, is this place of safety where we feel that we can discuss some issues without having to defend them from our mother, you know, which the female would represent. And it's like, you know, it's like when you were a little guy and you guys went off to the woods or to somebody's basement or built a fort or something, and got together with the guys and you talked so freely about some things that you were told in society. You don't talk about this stuff around women, and you don't swear around women, and you don't do this and this and this and this. And of course that stuff's all false. And once we're really clear, we don't care who's around or where we are, given respect for the situation, but we're willing to speak and come from a deep place. But as we learn to grow to be that centered and be that willing, there's setups such as men's group that makes it a lot easier, because we can start to practice and we can come out, okay, this is safe, there's this men here, now we'll talk about this, and we don't have to put any energy into defending it, and then we can get to the root of it and clear it. And it is something that needs to be cleared. If we feel we have to defend it, then there's something there's something going on here, right?
It's almost like we know, we have to know ourselves that there's something tenuous about it.
Right. But if we never voice it, then we can't clear it, right? And if every time we start to voice it, we feel like, okay, here comes another battle, well, you just give up after a while. It's like, well, I'll just shut this one down and just bury it. And so then, boy, I mean, people are often surprised in men's group at some of the stuff that comes up. It's like, oh, right. Like I hadn't thought of that one for, so long. Or, wow, we can talk about this now? That's okay, And yeah, it just starts to build that support and that connection and that brotherhood. And we start to join with our brothers rather than fighting against or pushing them out of our lives. And yeah, it's so beautiful to see that connection too. I know even just in walking down the street, my tendency often is somebody is walking towards me, it doesn't matter who it is, often I'll tend to look them in the eye, and I know so lots of people I'll just turn away, but it's more likely that a woman will hold eye contact than a man, interestingly enough.
Oh, yeah.
Like most men, it's like they're gone, because it's like, oh, here comes the enemy, or like.
Well, then there's something. I mean, there's a cage at the zoo where they have a little sign: "Please do not stare at the male. He becomes aggressive."
Right, yeah. So it really goes back deep through the animal kingdom. They have, that the warrior's going to come out, and the warrior not so much in the sort of positive sense, but in that fierce, I'm going to get you sort of sense. And so it's interesting this to lift, to first of all see the places that at deep levels we're competing, and then go, well, does that work? Oh, well, that doesn't work, so you let it go, and so then it becomes a softness, and and we'll move a little bit closer, and we don't have to fight about that one anymore. Now.
Yeah, without a loss of power, though, right?
Oh, yeah,
maybe
definitely.
New sense of power.
Yeah, it's definitely a gaining of power. It's like often in society, the patriarchy, it seems to have been labeled as a masculine thing. So, we're pretending there's no collusion from women, that men are somehow doing this and the women got nothing to do with it. And so it's called a men's sort of thing, and it's associated with power, which to me is like the sickest idea I've ever heard. You think that this is power. I mean, this got nothing to do with power. This got to do with pure fear, right? And control. And I mean, true power comes from this place of not having to prove anything or not having to control anything, but this feeling connected to the ultimate power, to the ultimate source, right? And so that's the thing that for me, it's all about connecting in with that and empowering the masculine, which is that place is just the sharing of power, and it's not tearing down or taking power away from males that's needed. It's that males need to feel a sense of power so they don't have to play any power over games and try and control the planet to go, geez, I'm feeling so weak, I've got to make another bomb, right? But if I feel powerful, what the hell's the sense of having a bomb?
It's not seen much. I think the other thing that's not seen is there's a complement to power over. And it's in our society, it's an invisible one, and it's power under. And it's the whole realm of the victim.
Right.
We live in a victim society, and it tends to be that we all look at men as having the power over problem, and then there's this invisible one nobody's looking at, and it's like we're not going to move too fast, too far, until we recognize those and quit blaming either gender for having this or this.
Right, yes, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting when you bring up that often the victim, if people are caught in the game, can definitely wield the most power. Like it's called power under, but again, it's just it's transfer. It's power over again. But like you say, in a subtler way, it's like people give their power to the victim by pitying them, by taking on guilt and suppressing themselves with guilt, which is another form of giving their power away. And I mean, it's such a game to get caught in on either side, either going towards really believing that the person's a victim or really believing that the so-called victimizer is powerful or whatever. Yeah. And they're all tricks that we play to keep away from actually accessing our true power and our true giftedness, that connection, bringing that through. And that's what like every time I've had any kind of association with men's groups and men's workshops and gatherings, I mean, all of them have reported back just a deeper, closer relationship with women. Because it's like
after a weekend, go home and say, just was smoother with the wife, was it?
Yeah, and I don't mean that everything's solved. Yeah. But I mean that there's been a shift and that there's been, and because it's like there's a letting go of control and there's a deep sense of worthiness. Well, the woman senses that and now feels safer because they don't feel like, like I'm going to try and control them, and they naturally want to move towards the power because it's attractive and it reminds them of the power in themselves, and of course all this works synergistically anyways. If I'm off at a weekend workshop working on stuff, I can almost guarantee my wife is having inspirations and she's getting the same things on the other side of that. Yeah. And vice versa, when she's doing her work, it's like, in partnerships, there starts to be a working at that level, where things are being communicated and brought across. I mean, there's the whole levels of this energetic exchange as well that are going on, and this.
What do you mean?
Well, this the fact that, our systems, of course, don't just stop at the skin. We got, all our layers of energetic systems that are even you and I sitting this close, where there's an intermingling and a mixing, and our talking's going on, and there's feeling at that level, but there's also all sorts of energetic exchanges that are going on, and there's a learning and exchange that's going on that we're not even aware of consciously. We'll think of a partner that you share the same building with, and in probably the majority of cases you're sharing the same bed, and all night long there's this, and especially when you're sleeping, when there's this relaxing, you're really letting in a lot of communication, and there's all sorts of like psychic connections that are going on that most of us aren't even aware of, or go, oh yeah, that's garbly gook, and that's woo-woo stuff or whatever, and you can see it however you want. My belief system, I can see and sense that going on, and there's all sorts of signs that make it obvious that that's going on. So, and that's another thing, is the energetics of being with a bunch of men, and the power of that energy, and even I find even more so with men that this being in presence with each other is often enough. I know I've noticed sometimes, say, on hikes through the woods, like oftentimes with a man, I'll just be walking along and both of us will be in silence and just like absorbing it and sharing the experience, and we feel the connection with each other, but there's no words exchanged or very few. And yet I've noticed oftentimes I've been out with women and they like to explore or talk about the experience more, and the exchange has gone on with talking. Now, for a while, I was just like, you know, like, shut up, I just want to take this in, right? And so, again, it was a call to surrender. Well, this is how this person likes to share this experience, and then I can get into that and just appreciate that and accept that. But I also appreciate those times of this happening in silence and the connection that goes on through that. And, and I find that there's room for that.